Why was he jumping?
Call this committee of the whole meeting to order on August 10th, 2021 at 7:02 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anybody that would like to speak under public participation this evening? Okay, and I have no cards on my desk either. Okay, first item up is Alice Rowe, Executive Director of Logan County Tourism, with the quarterly report.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Allie.
So this is the second quarter report for the Logan County Tourism Bureau, and these are for the months of April and June. The hotel motel tax income was a little over $30,000 and was up by 15% compared to quarter two revenue of 2020. Grants we've received in this period with a Paycheck Protection Program we received a few months ago, and it has been forgiven, the amount of $14,000. And the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity has given us $18,000, and that was for July 2020 to July of 2021. So they will be giving us a new amount for the next quarter. Advertising efforts, digital marketing has continued through May and June with website retargeting, Facebook and Instagram ads, and search engine optimization. The depot and mill are now official stops in the Route 66 Passport. This was initially something that they were going to start in 2020, but it got pushed back due to COVID. So this is what the Passport looks like. And then it has different stops along the way. And this is for all of Route 66 from Chicago to Santa Monica. This is an old one. So this is not the one that we're in, but this is what our new one looks like. It gives the address. People come in, they get a stamp, and then they get a free keychain to go along with it. So it encourages them to come in and visit us. During the months of April to June, there was 238 people with tourism-related inquiries on the phone or web or in person at the depot, and 33 of those visitors were people that came in with the Route 66 Passport. For the mill update, final touches were completed, and the reopening was on May 22nd. There was a backyard bash with a couple hundred people in attendance. We hired a part-time employee, and they worked the hours of 12 to 4 Tuesday to Saturday. And we received 231 visitors from May 26th to June 30th. 25 of these visitors had the Route 66 Passport, and there were a total of 3 tour groups. Financials are attached at the end.
Alderman Parrott.
Just two quick things. Are they spending money at the mill, purchasing anything? Do you know?
Yeah, we do have a gift shop open, and so any money that they are spending is spent on the gift shop, or there is a couple donation boxes that people make donations to.
And then where might someone pick up a passport in order to start using that? Do you know?
So right now you can order them online. We are looking into getting buying a pack of them so you could purchase them at the depot yourself. But as of right now, this would be something you would order online.
And there is a fee?
For the passport, yes, it's $9.99. You get the whole passport, and it's, the whole thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Alice? So Alice, how has your first couple weeks been with tourism?
I've learned a lot, a lot, but it's been really good. It's been nice getting to know more people in the community and getting situated with my new job. So
Good. Well, thank you for all that you're doing.
all right, thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, the next item up is number 5, pay application number 5 from L. Keeley Construction for Union Street Pump Station in an amount of $343,800. Any questions? Christy, when do you want to do the presentation?
We'll get through the pay requests and then go on to that.
Okay.
I want to do it before number 9.
Okay.
On Union Street, things are going along really well. Just to give you guys a brief update, basically pavers are coming in and they're going to be working on Union Street We did give them the start date of school, and they were kind enough to work with us. They will be in and out before the junior high starts, so we will have that portion done. There are going to be 2 mobilizations, but they are going to make good progress, get through most of the way down Union Street, and then wrap things up later. But I suspect you're gonna see a lot of activity starting tomorrow, actually. Andrew told me they confirmed that they will be mobilizing into town. So that should alleviate a lot of our dust issues and some of the others that have been going on along Union Street. So we are pretty excited to get that done. Keeley is anticipating substantial completion in October unless we hear differently. At this point, the only thing that could be a problem is I've heard on multiple projects there are component issues with Allen Bradley control equipment. And so we're kind of sort of playing that by ear. If anybody's tried to get any products over the last 6 to 9 months, you know that there seems to be a promise of delivery and then delay after delay after delay. But barring any issues, L. Keeley plans to be substantially complete in October, which is very good. And we should have our paving done, and they've really been doing a good job. There are some pictures and updates on pages 4 through 6 of the packet.
Alderman Fleshman.
When you say the paving contractor is going to have 2 mobilizations, how are they going to split that up, or do we know yet?
I do not know quite yet how they're planning to split that up. My assumption would be is they're going to do everything that is completed to date and get that all done. It's a help for everyone, including the residences, to get all those areas covered up and patched. And then anything that needs to be done out around the pump station, come back later and get those cleaned up.
Mr. Bounds.
Yes, the tentative plan as of right now, the mobilization that starts tomorrow morning will be the 100, 200, and 300 blocks of North Union Street, as well as some of the bore pits that we know we're done with. What you have going down in front of the pump station that is still being constructed is going to be the second mobilization.
Okay. Any questions for Christie on pay app number 5? Regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next item up is number 6, change order number 3, L. Keeley Construction, Union Street Pump Station. Christie?
And this change order is as we are wrapping up the contract. Again, we're looking at being in our last 3 months. We did pass a couple work directive changes, one which was to add the lateral work, and the other which was to do some additional paving because the trench had gotten wider and wider. And so basically we're coming back, that work's now completed. We know how wide the trench is and we know how many laterals we did work on, and coming through and finishing up the paperwork with those, follow up the change order to those work directive changes. And it did come in under what was approved originally within those work directive changes.
Alderman Bateman?
That's what I was going to mention is that this is work that we've already approved to a not to exceed dollar amount, and both of those projects, the lateral work and the paving, are going to come in under those dollar amounts.
Any other questions for Christie on change order number 3? Mr. Conzo?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification. So this would be an increase of $7,038, right? If I understand this right. A net
Actually,
increase?
no, this is a net increase of $261,267.32. You can correct me if I'm wrong because I forgot to put my reading glasses on, so I'm kind of sort of having long arm and squinting here, but
But there's also, if I'm reading this right, there's a decrease of 200.
that's previous.
That's previous.
Yeah, from the originally executed contract amount, then
Okay.
we decreased it for the work done, and
Just the increase.
this is the increase for those 2 work directive changes.
Okay. Regular agenda. Okay, next up is item number 7, pay application number 12 from Blocker Construction for CSO project in an amount of $893,753.07. Christie?
All right, hard to believe they have been working for over a year now, but it really does show if you look at the total numbers that they have on their pay app. They're completing wall extensions on the first flush tank. They're doing work in the electrical building, continuing with the lab and blower building. At least on as their schedule goes, I'm gonna have a presentation to give you guys updates on where we are on both of the contracts, change orders, et cetera, that's coming up in just a little bit, but they're over $10 million spent. So basically, a lot of the work they're doing right now is already on the alternates. And then they're finishing up and anticipating, hopefully pretty soon we'll see late fall, the startup of the actual CSO treatment facilities. And I anticipate that the lab will be done before that. So it's coming along very well. And there are photos from pages 28 to 30 that kind of also give an update with some pictures of what's been going on this last month.
Any questions? Regular agenda? Yep. Okay. Next up is item number 8, work directive change number 2 from Plocker Construction for duct bank reroute for the CSO project.
All right, this one it's kind of an interesting one and very unforeseen. So going back, this was one of the alternates that we took when we bid the project, was basically to build and enclose what I call the screening section of the wastewater treatment plant. Initially in the project that was done around 2000, the building itself had been taken out for cost purposes because the not to exceed cost had exceeded what was anticipated. So they did eliminate the building. So now we were going to go back and basically try to use the existing footprint, then build the structure over it so they could actually have dewatering of their grit and then reduce any risk for freezing, et cetera, et cetera. So when we got in, the first thing the contractors started doing was they have to drill and epoxy in anchors in order to take the building from being flush with the ground to start coming up. And the first thing they did is they started hitting control wires and some conduits at about 6 inches. And we're like, okay, this is odd. Well, come to find out, they actually, when they designed and built that last phase, for some reason they put all the conduits in the concrete substructure and pretty shallow at that. So this work directive change is basically to reroute those conduits around so that, one, we don't have to worry about any safety issues at the site for them to hit a power conduit. And 2, for future, those will be accessible because they won't be underneath the building anymore and they can actually do any maintenance. But it was quite shocking as to, how many conduits and the routing that was done back in the day. But this has to be done before they can do any more work with bringing the Headworks building up, because we do need to get that anchorage in. And the contractors basically said that, for safety reasons, they won't do any more drilling in that concrete until they know those conduits are out of there. So there are 2 prices. It's got an increase amount from $52,171,000 to $58,726. The difference between those two is the contractor's done some preliminary evaluation. They think that they may be able to pull the wire out that's in the existing conduits and perhaps be able to reuse that. The question is going to be whether they have enough is it long enough for the new route? And will they run into any problems? The lower amount is without having to have new wire pulled in. The upper amount, we went ahead and asked them to give us a price if we do have to get new wire pulled. So that's the range in pricing on those, is to just make sure we have those costs covered going forward. Any questions? It's a lot easier to be here face to face and see you guys.
Regular agenda?
Yes. I do
Alderman
have-
Fleshman.
Does the council have any will to just go ahead with the higher price and go with the new wiring on this situation? Or do we want to try to reuse what the contractor thinks will probably be enough?
How old is the old wiring?
20, well, not quite 20. I guess it's, 17, 18. I think we pay off the loan in 23. That would be,
Original loan was
Yeah.
was 2004, so that would be about right. So,
Yeah.
it'd be about 17 years then.
Alderman Bateman.
In the scheme of the size of this project, I would just, Mr. Fleshman and I has discussed this along with Andrew. I would like for the council just to agree to the higher amount, and let's put some new wires in. Got kind of a frantic phone call from Andrew when this happened. Just want to mention that this conduit isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, is not on any drawings, maps, or nothing. And a gentleman was just drilling holes and hit a high voltage line.
he didn't hit high voltage. Was it high voltage?
No, to clarify this point, the conduit is not in the location that it is supposed to be per the original
okay.
drawing.
Correct.
They were roughly 4 inches away from drilling into 483 phase on a 200 amp breaker, which would turn you into a Christmas tree.
Yeah,
Alderman Parrott.
So if we go with the new, do we recycle the old conduit, or does that just get thrown away? Or
Oh, it's buried in concrete. The wire you could pull out.
that's what I'm talking about.
potentially.
Yeah, the
Oh,
wire.
I mean, you could recycle the coppered wire, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know.
Alderman Helpful.
If we go with the new, are they going to have to try to pull it out, or if they?
No,
They're just gonna leave it there?
they would probably just leave it.
You're kinda looking at, Steve, if you and I wanna go down there and pull wire, we might make some money. I don't think so.
$100, man.
Did they breach the conduit when they were drilling?
A couple of the control conduits, yes. And they worked with Andrew and have kept control going for the pumps and the equipment there, but it's been a fairly bumpy ride over the last month or so with this. I know Andrew's preference is to get it taken care of as soon as possible.
Alderman Fleshman.
Yeah, we had, like Alderman Bates said, a frantic phone call from Andrew, because this could have led to a very serious problem for us, not only for the gentleman's health that was drilling the holes, but we could have lost all operation of our wastewater treatment plant here. So we kicked around several ideas of which way to reroute this duct bank, and then we also brought it to the contractor's attention that, well, hey, we think that possibly you're not going to have enough wire here. So as to not have a change order to the change order, that's why we have the difference in cost here. But I would be under the assumption to just go ahead and have him pull new wire in.
So that's been the approach with much of this project from the very beginning, was that we felt that we might not have another opportunity to do this the right way for another 20 years. So let's just do it right now. And it sounds like that's what Alderman Fleshman and Alderman Bateman are in favor of here, is just starting with new wiring.
And this makes it serviceable. The way it is now, it's not serviceable. If you had something go wrong in that floor, you're done. We're at least doing it this way, it makes it serviceable so that if a problem would arise, they could fix it quickly.
Alderman Helpful.
I just wanna make sure I understand what we're talking about here. For the lower price, they were going to cut and pull wire out and see if they could reuse it. So it wasn't going to be in the same conduit anymore. It was gonna
No.
be placed in new conduit.
Correct.
So what you're saying doesn't cover it, because whether they do that or not, it's just a matter of, can they pull it out? Is the conduit still, are the wire still not compromised? And then at the end of the day, is it long enough to finish the job? Then the question you ask yourself is, do you want 20-year-old copper wire?
Well, and that's been now stretched twice because they pulled it the first time and, now they're pulling it and splicing it.
Having had a few shocks in my life, I would probably tend to go with what you two want to do, is just go new.
Will there be a savings then if they don't have to pull that wire? I don't know how much time it would have taken them to do that, but
Unfortunately, that's probably the least of our worries because I doubt that they pull gently. They're just going to cut it on the ends and just yank, which again, that was another concern is, so they basically put it on a machine and they pull it through this long pull. So you're getting some stress on that wire the first time. Here you're going to get stress on that wire as you pull it out, and then you're going to put stress on it as you're pulling it back through. And obviously everyone's a little bit concerned. I mean, we were even concerned with the fact that, I wanted to have a price for that up front is what happens if there's something wrong with it and it gets damaged as it's pulled out. They don't know until they actually reconnect it, and then they go, oh, we can't get current through this, so now we have to take that wire back out, and then it's whatever they want to charge us, which is why we tried to get that price up front.
Alderman Parrott.
So do we know how long this will be before we can able to get is wire a hard thing to get now, or is that going to be fairly quick?
That was the other thing. It should be fairly quick to get, but obviously if we don't tell them to go, they're not going to order it. And then they wouldn't be actually getting that. It would probably have us down for at least an extra week, would be my guess. Because again, this way you would kind of order it when you get ready to do the work, and then it'll all be on site as they're doing the work.
Alderman Hopel.
How many feet, yards of wire is necessary, rough guess?
Is it 140?
That would be a rough measurement for the single conduit, but you're talking about multiple
I'm
conduits.
saying how many lines are we running, because you
Oh,
can say we
a
have
significant
120
amount
feet,
of
but
them.
if you've
I was
got-
going to say, I think there's 20,
I believe that we are at 17.
17.
So somewhere around
Oh, yeah.
2,000 feet or
Well,
more.
once you're dealing with the control wire conduit, the one that the gentleman drilled into, I believe had 18 live control circuits within it, which are all low voltage circuits, but you're talking about that many wires in one conduit and then 17 more conduits.
And you're hoping these are all going to be good if we pull them out.
Well, I mean, there's
I'm
a lot
not
of questions, going through it. Then obviously the control wire is less expensive than the 480, but again, at the same time, well, you'd then get into troubleshooting and everything else versus just putting the new wire in at the beginning and just saying, we know this is going to work.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we'd like to place this on the agenda, the regular agenda next week for the amount of $58,726 for new wiring. Correct? Okay, so we'll place that on the regular agenda.
Now we're ready for PowerPoint.
Okay.
Everybody loves PowerPoint. And we'll see if I can run it backwards. All right, just to give you guys an update, again, we've been at this for a year now.
Did you turn the side switch on it?
Side switch on. Ha. It works. Status. All right, an update on Union Street Pump Station. So just an overview, work completed to date. The gravity sewer is all completed. It's been tested. The force main is completed, tested as well. Final tie-ins are completed. The pump station's been backfilled, which was huge to get that gigantic hole filled in. The electrical building is up. This is actually a photo of the electrical building, and it's probably a lot further along now. And they've been setting equipment there at the pump station site. Overview, the contractor as of the pay apps that is on the agenda is 67% complete. Our engineering fee is at 85% complete. I will tell you that be prepared. I think the next pay app, if they really are paving, is going to be a pretty good one because they probably have quite a bit of the remaining dollars are tied up in getting that paving done and finalizing everything out. Again, they're talking about being done in 3 months, so that's quite a bit left to do. We did talk about this a little bit. They are anticipating paving beginning tomorrow and plan to be complete by the August the 14th before school starts. The north end is still held up. We do have an issue out there on what to do with a valve vault, but I think we have that now determined and we're gonna get that work rolling. And they are saying they're planning to be complete in October. It's been a long road. It's hard to believe October. On on the CSO, the Plocker job out at the site. If you haven't been out there, you really should go. There's a whole lot of work going on. The channels are tied into the new CSO. They've got the screen structure set and the pumps are set. The swirl concentrator, which is the picture in the upper left, is all set and ready to go. They've got baffles in the chlorine contact tank. That's the picture on the lower left. Basically, that the baffles were put in to allow more contact time because the water then has to flow in a serpentine pattern. Site piping seems like it's forever ongoing, but they've got a lot of piping in the ground. Blower and electrical building construction continues to go on, and lots and lots and lots of electrical work.
I don't mean to interrupt
Please
you, but
do.
I wanted the council to take a look at the upper left-hand photo there. If you recall, one of our early change orders on the job was to replace some iron I-beams with steel, or stainless steel, I'm sorry. And that is the stainless steel I-beams that were replaced. As you can see, they're out in the weather a lot. So we replaced them with stainless steel. We should get a little more longevity out of that. And that was a minimal change for us. It was $1,312. So that's one of the change orders the council approved.
The picture on the upper right is where they're extending the walls on the first flush tank. That used to be what was the CSO clarifier, where they actually did treatment. And as you may or may not recall, you guys had to pay additional funds to get that cleaned out. While it was a lot of money, I will say we had an item in the contract that was a unit price cost to do repair of the base slab because we had never been able to see what the bottom of that structure looked like. And the good news was it was in really good shape once we got it cleaned out. So didn't have to do any additional repairs. We only had to cut out the portion to run the new line in that's going to be the future drain line, extending the walls up to get the additional storage we need to capture that first flush volume. And then the bottom picture is just they've got some boxes in to do some pipe work down there. The alternates, again, going back in time, I will say that when we did this project, we had our fingers crossed. We put in four alternates and ended up being lucky enough that we were able to take them all. So we got to do the lab rebuild, which again, we never anticipated getting to do. If you look on the two right pictures, the top right is the exterior and it's really looking amazing. And the bottom is showing, if you look at the top, that's the wood ceiling that used to be covered with yellow lead-based paint. And it's amazing what it looks like now. I think those are the walls for the new bathroom and shower that's in there. Looks like a completely different place, just getting all that old paint and stuff out of there. Anyway, lab renovation completed to date. We have the lead and asbestos removal complete, the HVAC ductwork installation. The membrane is on the roof. They still have to batten it down. And for those that had never been out to the old lab, the roof leakage was pretty substantial and was causing a lot of problems to that old building. So the new roof membrane is on and just has to be battened down. And then lots and lots of electrical work, as well as building the new walls and kind of redoing the whole layout of that building. I still remember way back when we brought that initial report to you guys of whether to build a new building or save this old building. One of the guys that worked there was just like, I don't see how this can ever be worthwhile. This old building is just terrible. The roof's leak, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, be patient, It's not going to be the building that you see today. We were taking out walls, we were changing room layouts, and once we got the demo done, we got the paint off, I think everybody kind of sort of breathed a sigh of relief that it really doesn't look like the old building. We took an old garage and turned it into the laboratory, raised the floor up, poured a new floor in there, put a couple beams up. Again, it doesn't even resemble what was there previous. One of my coworkers laughed that the room on the back that's going to be the storage area, was a very interesting room. It had used to be the headworks, so which is not very pretty to begin with. And then it's a very moist environment, so it always had a lot of water inside. It looked horrible. It was dirty, and then they came in and they did the lead and asbestos, and as part of it, they ended up cleaning the brick walls too, just because they were blasting. And they're like, it looks like a Chicago loft now. You got these clean brick walls and this wood ceiling. And anyway, I just can't say enough about how well that whole process has turned out. So it does. It does. It has the original block on it. It has a beautiful architecture to it. And to think that, you know, we were so close to just throwing that away just because of that physical appearance. And Ron was the one who made the comment about the buildings of that era that were built around Lincoln, the bones are just so good that it just takes, you know, a little bit of effort to get down to what's really there. And this may very well have been what it looked like, you know, the day that it opened back in the 30s. But anyway, if you get a chance, I'm sure there'll be open houses later, but definitely take a look at that, because that building is going to definitely be a showpiece for the city, because it's pretty impressive. The Headworks building, also another alternate. We've talked about that. Got the location for the foundation walls and columns. They've done a lot of demo. Then they hit this electrical issue, but we're going to get them going again. The clarifier, they have got the mechanisms painted, and they actually started doing work this last week on demoing and starting to do some work in the, as Andrew says, Old West clarifier. Technically, you have three. I look at it in one's north, one's south, one's west, but they call the old ones the Old West and Old East, so it's kind of like a little confusing. But at the time, they were east and west. It was when we added the third one that it got confusing. So, update here, contractor 81% complete by payment, and we are at 100%. I'm going to go over that with you guys next. Plocker schedule, they have going out until February of 2022. But if you look at this alternate 4 that's listed, which goes out the longest, they're actually working on that now. So if they get that going, we'll probably see that done within the next month or two. So that will pull backwards. And I really do anticipate, as long as there's no more issues, that they will definitely more than meet their schedule. Status of EPA loans. As everyone knows, we did change contractors on the Union Street pump station job. We went from the low bid contract to the second. That was a differential of about $500,000. I reached out to IEPA a while back to ask, especially as the end of the fiscal year was, if there was any funds that we could request to get the rest of that covered. And lo and behold, asking is a good thing, because they said, yes, we can submit and ask for that additional funds, and we will also be able to get our 30% principal forgiveness on that amount. So the plan is to get a letter drafted, have Tracy sign that as the mayor, and get that in and try to get that differential covered and basically pay back our 70 cents on the dollar on that. We also are going to submit all the change orders and see which ones the EPA will approve on that. CSO, I don't even know how you do this, but to date, again, we did see that we have another change order coming for that conduit rerouting, but without that, prior to that, we are at a total of $38,622.73, which is 0.29%. So done an amazing job in keeping control of that, honestly better than I thought we were given work in the lab. They do allow a 3% contingency, so that $399,000 is available to take care of any of those items that occur or that we need to have done as part of that project. And that contingency also has a 30% principal forgiveness associated with it. So we still have ample funds in there to cover that or to cover other things that come up that need to be done as part of that. And that's the end of my slideshow. And kind of moving on from that, I'll turn that off. So we do have an amendment for the CSO contract, and this is an engineering amendment for our agreement. It is for a total of $65,000. What was done with these funds is basically all the lead and asbestos work that was completed in order to do that project. We did not have that in our original contract, not knowing whether that alternate was going to happen. So it didn't really make sense to increase our contract. We went ahead and got all that work done. That includes our engineering fees for assisting the abatement. She's not an engineer. Sanitation, what? Anyway, industrial hygienists, that's what they call them. To prepare the plan, I know, to prepare the plans and specs. She actually worked for us, and so prepared the plans and specs. It covered her time coming out, doing the testing that she had to do to keep us in compliance, as well as some minor revisions, such as getting rid of the drop ceiling and keeping that beautiful exposed ceiling available. So that's what the $65,000 amendment is covering to keep that going. And all that work is now complete, and we're ready to close that out.
Alderman Fleshman.
The 65,000, that can also come out of the contingency fund though, correct?
Yes, we can request that too, yes.
Okay. So for item number 9, would you like to place that on the regular agenda? And for those watching, item number 9 states Crawford, Murphy, and Tilly Amendment number 2 for the CSO improvements construction. Okay,
It was very nice to see everybody for a change.
too.
It's a lot nicer to hear. Well,
Thank you, Chrissy. I asked Chrissy to come forward with this presentation this evening. If you think back 4 years ago when we had our rate structure public hearing, all this was started then, 2015 prior to that. Because we're getting close to 80% completion, I thought it would be nice for the council to see exactly where we stand money-wise, engineering-wise. We have a few decisions to make. If we have some money left in that contingency fund, would it be the council's will to go ahead and spend that money on a few projects that are related to the CSO that Andrew has in mind? So we'll have to discuss that here in the near future. We also have the extra SRF loan money that we'll have to discuss when we find out exactly what's available there, if it would be the will of the council to take out additional SRF loan money. So thank you, Chrissy, for coming forward.
absolutely. Any other questions before I head out the door? Because I am going to head out the door this time.
I think we're good. Thank you
Thanks.
for coming.
Absolutely.
Okay, item number 10 is next. Hiring replacement police officer due to upcoming retirement. Chief Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. So Sergeant Detective Jim Raymond has tendered his resignation and retirement. He was on the force for 21 years. His last day will be August 31st, so we will be in the need of a new police officer. So I just need permission to hire.
Regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Is
you.
that on the regular agenda? Okay, next up is number 11, increased purchase price of new 2022 dump truck and snow plow. Mr. Landers.
After the council approved the purchase price for the new dump truck of $63,405, we were in the process of trying to get the sales contract finished and signed. In the meantime, Peterbilt Truck Company decided they were going to add a surcharge to the trucks. The medium duty trucks received a $1,000 surcharge, and then the heavy duty trucks received a surcharge of $1,500. basically to cover the cost of increase due to the metal and the things that are caused by the current situation. Components, the components are more money now. It's not uncommon. I mean, even in the plow parts, in the last truck, before we went to get this truck priced out, there were surcharges added before we completed that deal. So basically it adds $1,000 to the purchase price that was approved before. So it goes from $163,000 to $163,405 up to $164,405. So I'd just like to seek approval for the extra $1,000 on the purchase price.
Questions? Okay, regular agenda? Okay. Place that item on the regular agenda. Okay, next up is item number 12, ordinance amending 11-5-3 to zone recreational adult use cannabis dispensary as a C2 permitted business. Mr. Hoblet.
So this ordinance comes before the council. Sometime previous in the past, the council codified what was previously done. You guys passed resolution, the various ordinances that set forth stipulations and guidelines as to how an adult use recreational cannabis dispensary should run. And you guys you voted to codify that by creating a whole new chapter within the business regulations of the Lincoln City Code. What is there left over is how to zone the recreational adult use cannabis dispensary. Every business that comes within the city of Lincoln has to be zoned, and they have to acquire the appropriate, go before the zoning board, before they can seek approval. So I took the liberty, reviewed the Lincoln City Code, and it would appear that the medical use dispensaries are licensed as C2 permitted uses. So I use the logic that if medical is classified as C2, then perhaps adult use would be classified as C2 as well. And that is where this ordinance comes before you for you guys to deliberate and see as to how you would like to zone adult use recreational cannabis dispensaries.
Alderwoman Rolfs.
Now, have other communities had to do this? As far as zoning?
I mean, I have not looked to other, communities, but, for zoning is pretty common in regards to where businesses are placed. I mean, if you look to many city codes, you'll see zoning regulations, and within those zoning regulations, permitted businesses, and they will be quite voluminous in regards to their businesses, to where any business that could be thought of would be at least designation to industrial or commercial or residential, with the various variances. Well, kind of put two words there together, but the little variances that would be permitted. Say, for example, when somebody in the commercial district is looking to put a little window on the side where people, like say fast food, where people are trying to get their fast food, they have to go and get a variance there. So these are the type of things that are outlined. Like I said, Ms. Rolfs, just according to our code, that's why I put that in. But I would happen to think that if you look to other city codes, that it would be quite common to see what permitted businesses are in those respective codes.
Thank you.
Alderman Hovel.
Do you have any thought that C2 might not be the right code, or if we go ahead and pass this ordinance and we find out that C2 isn't, would it create a problem or just simply an amendment?
So where C2 currently lies, if you look to the Lincoln City Code and where we have our zoning, each respective zoning takes in all the provisions of the previous zoning. So you'll see that within C2, this is all permitted uses of C1 are also accepted within C2, and so on and so forth. When you get into commercial districts and you get into industrial districts, same thing. Everything that's permitted in the previous will be permitted will be permitted in the upper one. Now, having said that, having it licensed as C2, I believe puts different types of regulations on them. C1, I think primarily, like you say, if you're one to put up, Mr. Woodhall can correct me here because I think I might be venturing an area to territory that's more his expertise. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. But C1 businesses are usually like in the downtown region, and C2 is usually outside the downtown. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
The C1 district is primarily around the downtown, then towards Kickapoo and northwest on Keokuk for a short area. That's all your C1 primarily, and then most of your C2 is going to be headed out west, down Woodlawn.
So then C2 covers C1
Yes,
and
correct.
C2, so we're covering both spots.
If you recall, when Mr. Hopefully, you were not on the council at the time, but I believe you've been watching for quite a period of time. But a lot of the discussions we had when we were passing these ordinances was kind of in the downtown area, stipulation, setbacks, hours of operation. I think there was an idea that maybe it would be operating downtown. I think the C2, I would think be more appropriate, outside the downtown area. But it would encompass C1 just in case they would like to go in that position. But I think just with parking and whatnot, it would just be better.
Alderman Bateman.
So to clarify, this is just the zoning issue. It does not change the setbacks that we've already passed in the cannabis for schools, churches, or anything like that. Those all still stay in play. We just didn't come up with a proper zone to put it in. This does not change any of the setback rules previously passed. So if one comes to town, they still have to follow those setbacks for churches, schools, and such.
Alderman Hovel.
So am I taking this too far, or have you already done this previously? Will there be a licensing fee, not only from the state, but also from the city? Do we need to consider that in this ordinance, or will that be at another time or already done?
That is already done. What was previously
2,500.
Yeah, what was previously what we previously passed that codified. I think it's still within the new law section of our. If you look online of our codifying service, it's still within the new laws. They have yet to actually put it within the city code, but it's there, and it does have those setbacks and the yearly fees and whatnot for application. And
Thanks for educating me.
Okay. Any other discussion? Regular agenda? Okay. It's set on the regular agenda. Okay, next up is an item that I'd like to add in, and you all received an email regarding this, and this is the sale of 618 4th Street. And I'll let Mr. Hoblet explain it since he's prepared the ordinance to go out for bid on that one.
as I understand it, we received the paperwork that the property of 618 4th Street is now within the city's possession as of last week. I don't think by the time the cow went out, I don't think this ordinance was ready. This is why it comes before you now. So for any property that is to be sold within the city of Lincoln, there needs to be a bidding process. And so this is what would put the property out into the paper, and then people would have, for 3 weeks, 3 successive weeks, and people would have the opportunity to submit sealed bids. And within this ordinance I have here, you could put with various regulations or various stipulations that we put in. I remember when we did a process for bid in regards to what was property that was that we sold to Illinois American Water, we put within the bidding process, which is eventually sold to them, but we put within the bidding process there would be certain stipulations that they would have to adhere by if they were to put a bid in, from which I believe they have done. So you could put parameters on this. You could put, like, say, for development purposes, for anything else of that nature. Ultimately, it gets sold and put within back on the the tax roll, so to speak. So, I mean, and also just because there's a bid and there's a bidding process, if the bids are not palatable to the council as well, they could be rejected. Okay, so but this would go up for a bidding process, and the bidders will be open at a cow that is outlined in the ordinance there, and we would proceed at that point after those sealed bids have been opened.
Alderwoman Ross.
Now, did you say this has to be advertised, put in the paper?
Yes.
And how long, when does that go in and how long?
So it would go in for 3 successive weeks. So it would go into the paper. If you notice within my ordinance that I sent out, if it was voted on a Monday, I had the first publication date outlined on a Saturday. That gives the clerk plenty of time because you need to send this over to, when we use the courier, so we need to send this over to the courier. They will send a draft back to us as to how it will look, and then we would verify there needs to be any changes made. So that takes a day or so, and they can't just put it in and say, okay, thank you, we've figured this out. It's going to go in the paper the next day. No, it'll be a few days thereafter. So that's why I give that buffer time between the vote Monday, with the idea that Tuesday it would be submitted to the paper, and then Wednesday it'd be sent back, and then within Wednesday or Thursday the okay would be go, and then it'd be show up in the paper Saturday, 3 successive weeks. So it'd be, I believe, Peggy, is it not 3 successive Saturdays? Yeah. So 3 successive Saturdays on those respective papers, and then that cow after the 3rd Saturday, which should be September 14th. The bids would be, if any, would be opened.
Alderman Fleshman.
Just a thought, would we want to apply a minimum bid dollar amount to this?
We can. The city incurred $800, I believe, to acquire the property.
Do we know how much the property is worth?
We have not had an assessment done on the property.
I believe this is the one that's an empty lot, so it's not large amount.
I would think we would want to put a minimum bid of $800 on it.
We can amend this ordinance to include that, correct?
Yes, I could. I mean, it would just require adding a line that would. It's between now and Monday. I could definitely add that.
Okay. Alderman Hopeful.
Is this a full-size lot, normal, that a house can be put on it?
There used to be a house on the property.
So it does have possible remainder of plumbing, or at least lines partially put into this. I think it would be worthwhile to at least get some sort of appraisal on the value of it. I mean, I don't necessarily want to charge too much for it. At the same time, we're taking the risk, and we're doing it on behalf of the citizens of the city. We should see if there is some value to it. Not that we have to abide by it, but at least know.
I guess the question would be what residual value would you be gaining? Because if you're doing an appraisal, if you're going like the whole 9 yards getting an appraisal, you're looking where between $400 and $800 and extra then. And so then you're kind of, well, then do we set the minimum price then at $1,200, $1,600?
I was thinking to reach out to a realtor or two that I know and say, hey, look, do you know this property? What would a lot like this go for?
I mean, you could
yeah,
probably do a comparative market analysis. That wouldn't cost anything between now and Monday. I understand realtors are able to generate those on short order, so that might be an avenue between now and then if we're trying to keep this process moving.
Yes.
So that I understand, what is the purpose of the appraisal, though? And the reason I ask is because we bought it for $800, and the idea was that we got it back in the hands of somebody else that could do it. Whether it's appraised low or high, it's a sealed bid process. So unless you're going to use the bid or the appraisal amount as your minimum bid, that would be the only benefit I would see.
Well, if you guys don't care, I'll just check into it myself and see what the property value is for an empty lot in Lincoln. I understand
Sure.
what you're trying to achieve here. At the same time, I'd like to know if we're going in the right direction or
Okay.
not.
Yeah, Ms. Bateman.
I understand the $800, but putting it in the paper 3 times is not cheap. You're probably going to spend $300 or more to put it in the paper. So unless you want to be in the hole, you need to think about that expense also. I mean, I have no idea exactly how much, but and we don't know it till after we say, okay, this ad is okay, you can go ahead and run it. We don't know how much that is.
Alderwoman Ruffs.
That was my follow-up question is, we paid $800, but has there been additional expenses already incurred with the property?
Mr. Hoblet.
Cost of tearing down the house.
Well,
Sorry.
The cost of tearing down the house, we're way past.
There are liens against it.
Yeah,
So I,
trying to get it in the hands of someone who's gonna start paying taxes on it again.
Mr. Hoblet.
I think if I recall in the past, and I'm just guesstimating at this point, but when I've done this type of publication in the past, it's been about $330 some dollars. That seems to be the right amount. But if we can go down that rabbit hole, because as Mr. Bateman indicated, there's a demolition moved on that where there's a lien on it, but I would happen to think that lien's probably, I mean, if the property's going to be conveyed, I don't know if that lien's actually going to go with it. I mean,
Council can decide on how to address that.
I think the idea is in the long term that hopefully the taxes are able to, after being paid for a number of years, are able to recoup the loss that way.
So what would you like to do? Oh, yeah.
Put it on the agenda and see what we find out by Monday.
Okay, we can do that. Right.
Was that a minimum bid then of 800 or 1150?
We haven't put anything out there yet.
To be determined.
There probably could be an amendment done to the ordinance at that time if we have more figures or a more set amount you guys like to add.
Mr. Conzo.
Just remember, if you put a minimum bid on this and you don't receive that minimum bid, then what do you do? Then you have that, you still have the property and you're gonna have to continue to mow it and pay it, and that costs money to mow it. So, how much do you wanna keep spending on this?
Alderman Hopeful.
I agree with everything that's being said, but it can't hurt to at least know what the possible value, costs, and stuff are out there, because it may help bring in higher bids.
Okay. Fair enough. So we'll place this on the regular agenda and then we'll make any amendments as necessary next week. Okay. Okay, next we're up at announcements. Does anybody have announcements they'd like to make? Mr. Bounds.
So as we've been talking tonight, Union Street paving will start tomorrow. Please avoid it at all costs if you can. We're going to have a total closure for at least 3 days. Please stay away and please bear with us while we're taking care of this.
Mr. Landers.
We have the sidewalk bid opening Thursday, so I would like to add to the agenda for Monday the approval of the winning bidder for that sidewalk project.
Any concerns with that? Okay.
One more thing. Wyatt Avenue will be closed tomorrow between Ladue and Sherman Street for some milling and patchwork, preparing it for the resurfacing project coming up. It should only be closed tomorrow and should be open by the end of the day.
Okay. All right, so we'll place Mr. Landers' item on the regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anybody else have an announcement they'd like to make? Alderman Bateman.
So the downtown portion of the balloon weekend is coming up, and we asked for street closures starting Friday morning. But the Dock Dog people are wanting to set up on Thursday. So I'm just making the announcement of this will not be a street closure. But I have already okayed with the county to block off their 5 or 6, I lost count, parking spots from the ramp south on that side of the square. I've okayed that with Sheriff Landers and the other elected officials so that whatever time the dock dog, so I can block those spots off early so that whatever time the dock dog people roll into town, we can start setting up the pool and getting it set up and ready to go for competition on Friday. Again, it's not a street closure. I just wanted people aware that, we'll be mulling around those parking spots there on Thursday at some time to get that pool set up. It's parking spots only.
What's the date on that?
That would be the 26th.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Mr. Hopeful?
Like to make a motion to move to executive session under C21 for personnel and C22 for collective bargaining.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Or second? Alderman Hopeful made the motion. Alderman Fleshman second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fleshman,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott,
Yes.
Mr. Downs,
Yes.
Mrs. Ross,
Yes.
Mr. Hopeful,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Okay, we'll be going into executive session at 8:03 PM, and there will be no city business following executive session.